Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shields, deathly search, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm your useful idiot. Welcome. And today I want to talk about AI data centers. And of course, AI data centers are exploding and being built all across the country and, frankly, all across the world. And they need these gigantic data centers to support the exponential and insane growth of AI being integrated into everything. And as of 2025, there's 5,426 data centers, of which I had no idea that there was that many already. And when you look up these data centers, they're huge complexes, and they're being built in a lot of urban areas and mostly rural areas. But the problem is the use of power and water. As you would imagine, these gigantic data centers use a phenomenal amount of both electricity and water. And the bottom line is that a lot of the costs are being passed on to the taxpayers. A good example of that is data centers technically pay for their own water and power through contracts they make, but the costs are passed on to consumers through higher utility rates. And we've seen story after story of people in communities where there's data centers, and a lot of times their taps don't give water anymore. Their taps dry up, and then sometimes the water they do get has a lot of sediment in it. But the main problem, of course, is their utility bills are skyrocketing because these costs are passed on to people that live in that area. And the same thing goes with water. The rates are going up an average of 33% for people that live near these data centers. And these data centers use 500,000 gallons a day. So these data centers are just sucking up all the water and electricity in these areas. And there is more attempts now for these data centers to create their own power supplies and water supplies, but it's a slow process right now, and it's very expensive. And one of the problems is that the upgrades to the infrastructure and the grids to support these data centers is also passed on to the taxpayers. And there's a lot of utilities that have to jack up their rates because they're paying for new power plants, they're paying for transmission lines, they're paying for grid upgrades, and they'll pay for a certain amount, but the utilities naturally pass on a lot of these costs on to the consumers, the taxpayers. And one of the other things that's baked in the cake with AI and these data centers is I've read a few articles, and they talk about the fact that these data centers, first of all, are going to be outdated in a fairly short amount of time because the technology is advancing so fast. So in five to 10 years, a lot of these data centers will have to be completely overhauled, and it's going to be really expensive. And one of the other problems is that the, these data centers, these computers and everything, it's so intensive that a lot of the parts are going to be issues, and these data centers are going to be constantly needed to be upgraded, as well as the transmission lines and the grid systems and the power plants. And so once again, a lot of these costs are going to be paid by the taxpayer. And I'm going to attach a bunch of articles below that outline all this a lot more clearly than I'm giving it to you here. But one of the other problems is the potential. Well, there's no potential. There's a huge bubble in the AI industry. A lot of the growth of AI has helped fuel the stock market because we're talking about huge sums of money and the huge valuations of all these companies like OpenAI and ChatGPT. So it's going to create another problem, and that problem is for the economy because down the line, um, a lot of these data centers are going to have to generate somewhere between 320 and 480 billion dollars just to break even because the costs are so intensive to build these data centers, and what it's actually supplying to support the AI industry right now, as we know, a lot of these services are free, so it's not really generating any revenue. and what little income is coming will be coming in is around $20 billion. So they're about $300 billion short to support this industry. And if this bubble pops, it could have a huge impact on the economy. But when you look at all the companies and the people that are constructing these gigantic AI data centers, it's all these people like Bill Gates worth $106 billion, and Jeff Bezos worth $232 billion, and Larry Page worth $204 billion, and Zuckerberg uh, with a worth of $243 billion, and that's aside from what their companies are worth. Microsoft's worth $3.9 trillion, Amazon's worth $2.3 trillion, Google's worth $2.8 trillion, and Meta is worth $1.8 trillion. So the bottom line being that they have the money, they should be paying for all of this, and like so many other corporate public partnerships, public-private partnerships, a lot, as much of the expenses as they can will be passed on to the taxpayer and passed on to consumers. And this is an egregious example of that, because these are the leading and most wealthy corporations on the planet, and they have incredible valuations and personal wealth of the people that own these companies, and yet they're still going to pass on a lot of these costs for their data centers onto the taxpayers and the consumers. And so, and the costs never end. Another example is I mentioned about the water. To upgrade the water systems to sustain these data centers will cost another $250 million. So these data centers are just going to be money holes, and unfortunately, they're going to pass as much as they can on to us. And so anyway, enjoy your AI, your fun with AI, and people making all these funny videos and fake musicians and fake actresses using AI, and then think about how much you're paying for it. I'm a useful idiot, don't you be one too?